At first, ComboBox might seem like a strange topic to drop into a course on models, views, and delegates, but stick with us. It's not as random as it sounds. We're still working towards building a useful weather-based application, and we'll need a way to select the location for which we want to display weather. Why introduce ComboBox here? Well, it takes a model, has a delegate, and internally uses a list view for its drop-down selection, which makes it quite like a view. Plus, it has a very useful feature when working with models that is better demonstrated than explained. So, let's dive right in. First, we can add a combo box above the list view with the ID location combo box. Set its width to half the window's width. Run the project, and you should now see the combo box at the top, with the sample weather data at the bottom. We mentioned that ComboBox has a built-in delegate. It's a component called ItemDelegate, which is accessible when using one of Qt Quick Control's built-in styles. You can provide your own delegate if you prefer, but you'll need to include the necessary properties to retrieve the data from the model. To quickly see the default ItemDelegate, set the ComboBox's model to 10. This creates 10 ItemDelegate instances, each displaying the text for the corresponding model data index and showing mouse over and selection highlighting. Now let's create our location model with some sample data, following the same steps we used for the weather model. Next to the combo box, we can add a list model with the ID location model. We will add some list elements to the model containing a location and request. Then, let's bind this location model to the combo box instead of the number 10. Here's the feature I wanted to highlight, this simple yet powerful feature of ComboBox. ComboBox has 4 very useful properties. TextRole, which is the role from the model that will be used as the text in each item delegate. ValueRole, the role from the model that will be associated with each delegate as its value. Current text, the value of TextRole at the ComboBox's current index. It's also used as the default display text when the combo box is rolled up, and current value, the value of valueRole at the combo box's current index. To see this in action, we can set the text and valueRole properties and use a signal handler when an item is activated at an index. Now, when we run our application and select a location, the combo box reads the roles we set in the model and uses them to populate its default delegates. In the console output, you'll see the selected location's current text and current value. It's a simple setup with just a few properties, but it's incredibly powerful. ComboBox has many other cool features, but for now, I wanted to highlight its convenient relationship with models and delegates. Our application is starting to come together. We have a UI for displaying weather and a way to select from a list of locations. But how about we make things more live and interactive? Let's add the ability to search for your current location or any location worldwide and retrieve the live weather for it. In this section, we will introduce a couple of pre-prepared models into the project. These models will be drop-in replacements for the ones we've been using so far, but with the added functionality of fetching live location and weather data for us. The structures and roles of these models are identical to what we've been working with, so there won't be any major changes to how our code works. Our remaining task is to connect a few pieces to make it all come together. We've already created a location model with sample data, but now we want to use real locations. Why are we using a combo box? Well, let's say you wanted to use London as your location for the weather forecast. There are many Londons around the world, so you would need to specify which one. To handle this, we'll add a text field where you can type in a location, and the combo box will show the possible matches from around the world. How do we do that? If you look at the project tree, you'll notice we have a couple of pre-prepared models we haven't mentioned yet. One of them is called LiveLocationModel, and we can use it immediately. We'll replace the location model where we previously declared it with a LiveLocationModel, and also remove the list elements. Next, we'll create a text field above the combo box and set a preferred size, color, and default values. Now let's add an onAccepted handler so that when you press the return key, the location model updates with the text you've typed. It will search for locations matching that text and repopulate the combo box. We'll also add this line to trigger the LiveLocationModel update on startup. When you run the application and wait a moment, the combo box should populate with all the different London options. Try typing in your location or other place names like Brisbane or Birmingham and see how many places share the same name. Now we can type in a location and select from the various options in the ComboBox dropdown. But what's the weather like in that location? Let's make our weather model live, just like we did with the location model. Where we had previously declared the weather model, we'll replace it with LiveWeatherModel. You can also remove the list elements from the weather model. We also want to allow users to choose between Celsius and Fahrenheit, so we can add a switch just below the location ComboBox. Now the weather model needs to update whenever the location ComboBox selection changes or the Fahrenheit switch is toggled. Let's add these bindings. The weather should also update whenever the location model is updated, such as when we type in a new location. By default, we'll select the first option in the location ComboBox until the user chooses a different option. To handle this, we can use the updated signal from the LiveLocationModel to set the current index to 0. Since fetching live weather data may take a moment, let's show a busy indicator during this time. Both the LiveLocationModel and LiveWeatherModel have a busy property. We can bind these to the enabled property of the column layout, making the busy indicator visible. Now let's run the application and watch your live weather app come to life. Try out different locations and see the forecast for your chosen area. For example, typing in Brisbane will show the weather forecast for the next 7 days. To complete the weather app, it would be great to display the current weather at the selected location. Conveniently, the LiveWeatherModel provides this information through a set of current weather properties, which are populated at the same time as the weather data for the forecast. Although this doesn't strictly follow the model View Delegate pattern, we can treat it similarly since the properties are available when the rest of the data is. The current weather properties we'll use are similar to the roles in the model: time, weather code, temp, and units. To display this current weather information, we'll add some larger UI elements at the top of our column layout, arranged in a new row layout just before the location text field, with a spacing of 32. First, we will add a label for today's date. Then, an image using the weather code within the URL will be visible only after the data has arrived. Finally, we add a label for the current temperature, combined with the units. Now, when we run the application, you'll see today's date and the current weather for the default or selected location. One final touch. Let's update the pane background to show an image representing the current weather. The pane is a control, and since we're setting its size with anchors.fill, whatever we assign to the background will be resized accordingly. We can start by modifying the pane's background to find an image with the appropriate weather code and adding a semi-transparent black rectangle over the top to make the weather information stand out. Lastly, we need to comply with the attribution requirements of the weather data source provided by OpenMedio. We should include a clickable link to their website and the API documentation we used for the LiveLocationModel and LiveWeatherModel. Add the OpenMedio component to the bottom right corner of the pane. And now, let's take one final look at our beautiful weather application. It shows the current weather, the forecast for the next 7 days, and a background image matching the weather at the selected location.